when you're first getting started, if you're starting from nothing, reach is going to be your most important thing because you need to be able to get eyeballs on things to get anything to happen, regardless of where it is in the funnel, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all numbers, it's all math. Like
Hmm.
they go through, so you need to hit reach. And then your middle of the funnels where things get messy, but at the end of the day, it should come down to link clicks, calls, or messages to be able to get conversions into whatever you're doing.
Welcome back, everyone. Hey, Liz, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about auditing your marketing.
Auditing your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's something that I think we've both done a little bit.
Yeah, we've both done it a little bit. It's like one of my favorite things to do, but I don't know that everybody feels that way about it. But I
Yeah.
really, really enjoy auditing my own marketing and auditing others' marketing because it's just you always learn so much, and I'm a bit of a nerd for the numbers. So like
Hmm.
I'm excited for this episode.
Well, good, good. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that some of us might dread
Yeah,
a
I can see
little
that.
bit because it's always like, I mean, it's in essence kind of a performance review for your marketing,
Hmm.
right? And but we're at the time of the year when a lot of us kind of choose to do it now,
Hmm.
right? And I think it's kind of a natural spot.
Yeah.
So let's jump a little bit into that. Why it's important to do it.
Hmm.
Is this the right time to do it or not? And what are some of your thoughts? Because I know at this time of the year, yeah, and end of year, right, as we're turning on to January,
Hmm.
it's a time to review a lot of things.
Well, I think like it is a we look at how our business performed. English, my goodness. We look at how our business performed in the last year naturally at this time of the year.
Hmm.
And marketing is a part of that,
Yeah.
right? Now I'm a big fan of auditing more than once because I don't think you should wait an entire 12 months to course correct on something that's not working. But I also think that there's something that feels really nice about walking into the new year going, this worked, this didn't work, I'm gonna do more of this, and like
Hmm.
really feeling like you got your act together and like you know where you're moving. Because even if that quote unquote performance review wasn't great, it still is informative. It's information you can use to do better the next time. So like I think for me, that's why it's so important to do it at this time of the year. Maybe a little more often, but at least at this time of the year.
Yeah, and this is, I think, a natural break point for a lot of people because it's the end of the year, right? Sometimes we get a little bit more time off, and it doesn't mean that we're taking time off. We're not thinking about our, things that happen with our business or whatnot. So I know, like for me personally, I get more time where I cannot be performing my services or doing the things that I typically would, but I still have downtime in those periods where I can look at some of the things that some of the initiatives I've had over the year, be it marketing or operations or whatnot, and take a look at them. But I do like having a more formal audit as well. So I think this just naturally, right? January, we're usually like we're invigorated after the holidays, ready to like start things.
Mhm.
That's when I typically start going to the gym again. So
I don't make that decision. That's all on you.
it'll last about like 2 weeks, and then I'll pay for the rest of the year.
That's a whole other conversation.
So let's talk about what is the difference between a simple end of year audit and a full strategy overhaul.
Well, okay, it's an audit is just looking at what worked and what didn't. It is
Mhm.
analyzing what you've done. And then you can extrapolate a little bit as to like what to do more, but you're not ideating new things necessarily, you're
Mhm.
evaluating things. At least
Yeah.
in my viewpoint, like when you evaluate, ideas do naturally come, and that is a little bit of strategizing, but a strategy itself, that is like a ton of external research,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of development, and it's development, not as much evaluation, even though you do the audit, first when you're
Uh-huh.
doing strategy, but like there's a break point there where you stop.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and like you said, the audit does need to come first,
Oh yeah.
right? It wouldn't make sense to, just evolve or overhaul your strategy without having a look at what you've done and what's working and what's not.
Yeah, and people do that a lot with like they skip the audit because shiny object. It's way more fun to do new things than to measure what didn't work. And I get that, like as somebody who also likes shiny objects, like it's definitely a thing. But your audit is that kind of like the not sexy, like but absolutely necessary component of evaluating how things work in your business.
It is.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're doing a full strategy overhaul, you definitely need to have the audit first. And also, doing an overhaul, like I would look at strategy at the beginning of the year more as maybe evolution, not revolution, unless there's been something drastic
Yeah.
that is guiding that to be a complete overhaul.
Yeah, like if your strategy did not work at all, then we're
Yeah,
there are deeper questions.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bigger issue. That might be another episode. All right.
Oh,
So, why do you think small business owners skip the audit or the end of year audit? Or on the flip side, how do they overcomplicate it?
okay. So like we skip it because it's boring and because we don't want to look into the face of what we did or did not do.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot, like, sorry if that's a little harsh, but like a lot of the times when you're auditing, you have to come face to face with, I said that I was going to do this thing. Did I do it?
Yeah.
Or I invested this money into this company and I paid them to do it. And so I'm trusting that they did it. Did they do it?
Hmm.
And like that's not a comfortable conversation, especially like if you know in the back of your head that the answer is no.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because when we are thinking about small businesses, a lot of the times it is the buck stops with us, and it's I think that we skip it because we don't want to look, not because we can't.
Hmm.
And then overcomplicating it, I think is more of just like when people try to do a strategy overhaul instead of an audit. I think that's where people get overcomplicated is they start doing they get like one piece of information and then they run with that one piece of information and go and try to create something completely new instead of just going through and doing the audit and seeing where you stand and then making collective decisions because if you try to make these big sweeping changes off of each individual piece of information you are going to be there forever and you are not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and I've seen that before.
yeah.
You're absolutely correct. It's like, okay, it's gut reaction, right? This did not work, or this had this result. Therefore, let's jump into, doing this thing over here, as opposed to trust the process, run the full audit, be thorough with it, and then digest that information before you can jump into the strategy phase.
Mhm.
So one step at a time, trust the process,
Yeah.
and then you can then go into making iterative changes to your strategy for next year, or
Yeah.
doubling down on things that work, stripping out things that didn't,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So when you're talking about trusting the process, right? Like
Hmm.
when you're going to be looking at doing a marketing audit, like getting kind of into the meat of it, like what's the first thing that you look at?
Okay, so I look primarily at two things when doing an audit. I like to, I mean, obviously, not to get technical on like website speed or how many page views we're getting here or there, but taking a step back and just being more abstract, I'm looking at the data, trying to identify what are low hanging fruits. What could a business be doing that will have, decent amount of impact and, for not that much effort? Because that's going to be like or rather the ones that they're not doing, right? Are there little things that they haven't been doing
Quick
that they could
wins.
be quick wins?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I look for that low hanging fruit, quick wins that are not being done, and then I look for red flags,
Okay.
right? Are there certain initiatives that are just absolutely not paying off, right? Where we just spent a lot of time and effort and money on something, and it just didn't pan out. Uh, Everything else is important as well, especially in terms of like the iterative adjustments that you want to do to the strategy for the next year. But like any of the outliers, that's a big thing.
That makes sense. I take a little bit of a different approach towards it. Because for me, mine almost always, I think part of the reason is that there are so many low hanging fruit in
Hmm.
what I do that if I were to look at low hanging fruit from the beginning, we would never move past that stage.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Because there's like, oh, but you could tweak your highlights and you could tweak your bio and you could like,
Uh-huh.
there's so much like stuff there that could like micro changes that can be done when you're creating that amount of content, like
Hmm.
and that sort of deal. So what we always start with is I need you to actually tell me what you tried to accomplish.
Uh-huh.
We need to because a lot of the times that hasn't actually been established.
Hmm.
Or if it has, it's just a really good way to frame things of like, what are you trying to do?
Hmm.
Because there are so many different ways you could go in social that you don't actually know what will be helpful if you don't start with just like, what are we trying to actually accomplish here? Like,
Uh-huh.
what do you want your social media to be doing? Because I also
Yeah.
think, just because I'm looking at it from a social media perspective, people don't always understand what social media does. They just like know they're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And so having that framing and that foundation is super, super important before we can do anything else, and making sure that we understand like what KPIs we're actually measuring, because
Hmm.
there's so much data that they give us, which is wonderful,
Yeah.
but it can also be very overwhelming if you don't frame it before you get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the KPIs are key to,
Hmm.
if you don't know what you're measuring, then, the data is not going to make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, how would you say that small business owners, like, how would you have them evaluate which marketing efforts actually worked?
So, ROI
Hmm.
is primarily, right, what's going to be leading that in terms of what worked and what didn't. Because there might be some initiatives where, you're getting a lot of return, but you're disproportionately spending there.
Hmm.
So when you look at it in the grand scale, when you take a step back, are there certain marketing initiatives that the business is taking that are yielding a better result, per what they're spending? And do they have the ability to scale on that or not? Um, on the flip side, like there are some initiatives that do take longer time
Hmm.
to pay off. So for instance, we're talking before the episode about like SEO versus ads, right?
Hmm.
SEO typically will take a longer time for you to see a result. It's usually not going to be immediate.
Yeah.
It'll take, and that's changing. So, especially with AI and
Hmm.
all of that. But typically, what most SEOs will tell you is that it takes 6 to 12 months for you to start seeing results after spending money on SEO and developing a strategy and building the content and all that.
Hmm.
Versus something like ads, where it's a little bit more of a faucet. You turn it on and off, right? I mean, yes, there's a training period and there's optimization and all that, but essentially you can expect results quicker.
I got told by somebody who I was doing like helping plan a marketing plan
Hmm.
for them, and they were telling me, they're like, yeah, like we were told that we need to be spending on Google Ads for like 6 months in order to know if we're going to get results or not. And I was like,
No.
no, actually,
Yikes. Yeah.
that is somebody who didn't want to do their job.
It's a
That
great
is
sales pitch.
like, oh, and I do not do Google Ads. I want to be
No.
very clear about
Yeah.
that. But they told me, they were like, so like, do you think like in 6 months we should be getting results off of our ads? And I was like, well, I freaking hope so. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't offer Google Ads as well, but I obviously have worked with people who do, and what I've heard is everywhere from 2 weeks to maybe a month to train the algorithm, especially if you're making changes to it,
Yeah.
and then every time you decide to go in and make changes, and that kind of resets the clock because you got to retrain it,
Yeah.
right? But 6 months, golly,
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of those things where it's like, audit your stuff,
yeah,
evaluate marketing efforts on a regular basis. But yeah, no, there are different. I agree with that with the ROI. Just kind of pulling us back on course. But
hmm
like, yeah, that's a big one for me. It again comes back to the goals, and did you define KPIs that you were actually trying to meet? Because what gets
hmm
measured gets done,
yes,
right? That's a thing. So like, if the hardest part of this is going, well, I don't really know if it worked or not because I don't know what it was supposed to do, which is a conversation I hear about social and email marketing all the time. I
uh-huh,
don't really know what it was supposed to do, so like I kind of grew, and like that's like the conversation I'm having. I'm like, well, of course you don't see the value. Like but it's super common. I know it sounds, I like, to me it sounds ridiculous. No offense if that's where you're at, but like, but also like that is a very, that's also why people say, oh well, the intern can do it, or oh the
yeah,
like my niece or nephew, because that's the framing it's being looked at. So that's why I'm kind of looking at this from a different lens, is
hmm
like, you need to be setting KPIs, and one of the great things you learn from an audit is whether or not you did that, and to do it for the next
yeah.
year. Like, what do you actually want to accomplish with what you're doing? Because then we can actually plan to hit the goals.
Yeah, because I mean, so as we're, on the strategy side, right, as we build the strategy for the year, if we don't, like, we need to have the goals,
Yeah.
right? Is the goals to Is it to increase sales? Is it to get more people to know about your brand
Mhm.
or about your product? I mean, there's a variety of things that we can do as far as, what those goals should be. And then that should tie back to what are the metrics that
Mhm.
we're, you know, looking for in the data.
Exactly.
And, we all in our different audits and our different lanes have different metrics that we want to
Mhm.
keep an eye out
Of
for.
course.
What are some of the ones that are key for you?
Well, that depends on your goals.
Uh-huh.
But I think a lot of it's like, so your bottom of the funnel metrics are really, really easy to like know if they're done or not because it's money coming in the door.
Yeah.
Like as long as you're asking people how your client came in, which
Hmm.
not everybody does, but
Yeah.
like you know, oh, there are more sales, therefore
Uh-huh.
like that sort of thing. It's your middle and top that have a little bit more flex in social, right?
Hmm.
I think a really good example of this. I have a client right now who what they're doing is it's very personal subject matter related to women's health.
Uh-huh.
And so when you look at their content, I actually gave myself a little bit of a scare when I was doing their analytics report for the last
Hmm.
2 months because we saw a significant dip in engagement.
Mm.
And I was like, crud, like
Yeah.
that's not good, right? But where we had lost in engagement, we had gained in link clicks
Uh-huh.
because it was resonating, but it was resonating in a way that somebody doesn't actually want to publicly engage with
Hmm.
because it was personal and intimate
Okay, yeah.
as far as like health and women and like that sort of
Uh-huh.
thing. So that knowing what you're trying to accomplish with each piece of content and like deliberately tracking your different areas. So like reach will be important if you're really just like not being seen by anybody and you want to be visible. Whereas like depending on your industry, messaging conversions might make sense. Likes and comments might make sense. But if you're in an industry where you're talking about something that's personal, likes and comments might not actually be a good indicator of what's happening in the middle of your funnel because people may not want to publicly acknowledge that they actually get it. So like
Uh-huh.
it's applying what you are, like what
Hmm.
type of thing you fall into, and then where you're trying to bring people through the journey. So it's kind of hard to pick a specific one if you're not getting I'm getting way too in the nitty-gritty here. I'm so sorry. I'm just very excited about this.
You did give the warnings. She warned us. She gets excited about the audit. So
but it
go
really
deep.
is matching like because you're not worried about like personally admitting that you're excited about a website,
Yeah. Hmm.
but you might feel some sort of way about like a testosterone pill,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Like or I used to write blogs for incontinence underwear. Like you're gonna engage with that content
Uh-huh.
differently than you are the restaurant up the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
So how you measure your middle of the funnel stuff
Hmm.
is going to vary based on how people are going to feel about it, the thing. That doesn't mean you're not going to get the sale. So it's just context is key. Context
Hmm.
is key. I guess all of that could have been summed up with context is key. Um, but reach when you're first getting started. If you're starting from nothing, reach is going to be your most important thing because you need to be able to get eyeballs on things to get anything to happen, regardless of where it is in the funnel, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all numbers, it's all math. Like
Hmm.
they go through. So you need to hit reach. And then your middle of the funnels where things get messy. But at the end of the day, it should come down to link clicks, calls, or messages to be able to get conversions into whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So sum that up without being awkward. What about
Yeah,
you?
and I'll add to that. I mean, yes, when it comes to things that you do with websites or brands or with local SEO, there's different metrics depending on what your goals are. As well, you can track all sorts of things, such as like how high you're showing up on Google searches for the keywords that you're trying to rank for. You can analyze like website speed performance or conversion rates from specific pages and all that. So those are all things that make sense. For a lot of businesses, it's going to be has my phone rung more this year
Hmm.
than others, which is it's almost like an unfair metric because there's so many external factors that affect that, right? Um,
Also, as you're marketing to a younger demographic, getting your phone to physically ring is probably not the best way to
Listen,
assess whether or
my people,
not.
my Gen Xers, we remember the day when we pick up the phone like this,
That's fine,
not
but
like this.
a lot of your buyers are millennials and they would rather text you. So you're
All right.
so
That's my KPI. I'm not doing text me if my phone is texting more. I'm always getting more text.
Don't be a laggard. It's fine. Like, like I
I'm not
lost
feeling
track of where we're
seen,
sitting.
Liz. I'm not feeling seen.
Well, I'm sorry. That's tough.
Okay, so let's jump into the next question. So how do you decide whether to double down on a strategy or pivot in the new year?
Okay, so I think that kind of comes back to what we said a little bit earlier, which is if you're absolutely changing your strategy, there has to be a really good reason for that.
Yeah.
Like something has to have gone very, very, very wrong for that to be the
Hmm.
case, or maybe you just didn't have one, or
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. Like you go through your audit and you're like, well, I didn't actually have a plan to do this. Like, okay, well then
Hmm.
yeah, it's time to have a strategy. But I think when I'm looking at pivots or changes, a lot of times it's what opportunities have come up throughout the year that I haven't yet capitalized on, like what maybe new technology or new options are there, and then do I have the bandwidth either personally or financially?
Hmm.
Because you're either going to pay time or money for something,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
To implement those without sacrificing what's already working. And that's
Uh-huh.
when I start looking at different like changes in like the strategy piece. Does that make
It
sense?
does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like there are certain market trends that you can consider as well. So like in my field now in SEO, right, the big trend is AI SEO. People are
Mm-hmm.
paying more attention to how do you rank your business when people are searching, on ChatGPT or Gemini or whatnot. And although, like, I just did the talk on that a few months back, and as we're going to see where we are at the end of this year, but at the end of last year, there were 31 million AI searches. That is still that for businesses, but that is still like an infinitely small number compared to what you get on Google.
Mm-hmm.
However, what you're seeing in AI SEO and the way that you show up on those searches is going to affect everything else. It's going to affect how Google SEO, how Google reads websites and ranks them because Gemini is getting integrated there or is integrated there. And so I think that trend is one worth paying attention in making an adjustment or a slight pivot to in that realm because is going to pay off in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
specifically because SEO is not it's not a marketing strategy that's turn the faucet on and off. It's a little
Mm-mm.
bit longer in terms of how it delivers. I think it's worth considering that
Mm-hmm.
um, going forward. So that's like one of the things is market trends,
Yeah.
right? That might be worth making the
And in a lot of ways, that's what I'm talking about with opportunities and things that have changed is
yeah.
like what is there available that is new that you know is gonna, yeah, because that's, you don't want to be left behind, but you also, if you have something that's working and you don't have capacity to do more, you don't want to overextend and become inconsistent on the thing that is working. And I'm totally not speaking from experience. But
Uh-huh.
it's something we see all the time is we leave what's working in order to chase what will work in the future. And
Yeah.
there is a balance that needs to be
Hmm.
struck there because just because something is starting to grow, I'm not saying you should not adopt things that are starting to grow, but it is a capacity and investment question as
Yeah.
well because you don't want to hold back too long and like, oh, it's 2025 and I'm just now thinking that maybe we should modernize and start posting on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you should do that, but also like if you have a door-to-door strategy that's working and that's where you're putting all of your manpower and you've only got like this much to contribute, then you don't want to necessarily take all that away if that's where the bulk of your, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just I see that happen a lot where we kind of just get a little,
Yeah, and the balance is going to depend too on like what you're doing,
yeah.
right? And where do you see the ball going? Because there's some industries that are just going to be a little bit slower in how they change from, one thing to the next, like new algorithm changes. Are they going to take longer, or historically, have they taken longer?
Hmm.
And have they had a big, profound impact or not?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about an easy way for business owners to review their content performance without getting stuck in the data.
So I'm like not a good person for this question because I like the data. As you saw with my little word vomiting a few minutes ago, I'm very, very into the puzzle, but I know that you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I do. I think that like primarily before I jump into the data, I like to know what am I looking out for?
Yeah.
What is important in here and what do I want to get out of this? Because otherwise I feel like I can go down rabbit holes where I'm letting the data guide me instead of me guide the data.
Mm-hmm.
Or I shouldn't say me guiding the data because that sounds like I'm manipulating it, but more me defining what I want to get out of it.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that makes sense. That makes complete
so
sense.
I think if you go into your marketing audit knowing that you want to find out either item X, Y, or Z, it's going to give you clarity so that you can always have that North Star.
Yeah, and I will say I definitely do define what I am going looking for before I start looking for it, but then I like to let the numbers just like wrap me in a blanket and
Yeah.
kind of but that's my own issue.
hmm
So what about when you are kind of moving forward? What about when we are looking at making sure that things kind of, I guess, stay on brand, right? Like messaging and visuals, that they still align with that brand moving into 2026. I know that especially as somebody who does branding,
Yes,
you
I do that.
you do that, right? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little bit like with strategy where you do want to revisit it.
Mhm.
You want to make sure that it's still true for where your business is, how it has grown and evolved over the year. So I recommend that first off, you take a look into it and ask some introspective questions to make sure this is still an accurate representation of where you want your business to be.
Mhm.
And then share it. Share it with trusted sources. Share it with customers,
Mhm.
right? Customers that you have a closer connection with, to get their feedback, see if they still feel that way about the brand. Some of the things might be more internal versus external. So there might be parts of your brand, like maybe your core values are not uh, exterior facing, maybe they're more internal, but that can give you an opportunity to review those with a friend or a customer and say, do these feel accurate for my brand?
Mhm.
Um, Also, visually, if your branding is rooted on something that is too trendy, it's likely going to need to be updated. So just be cognizant of visual trends. There's a company out there that puts out a logo trends report every year where they analyze some of the trends of like logos that were created over the past year,
Oh, cool.
so that you can find out that hey, there were more logos that had sharp edge geometrical shapes this year than previously, or there were a lot more app shaped icons coming up, and that is there's different reports like that that provide a good insight into what has happened to branding over the year. And then there's some like again, depending on what the brand is, I'm trying to hit the realm. If you're doing more let's say things on social, for instance, you might be, are you leveraging more of like a retro vibe or more modern and trying to stay cutting edge? Are there things that by the end of the year are going to look dated or not? So just, stay in the know. Talk to young people. Don't be cringe.
That was cringe. All right, look. But you are not saying that for those of us listening, he just made a sad face with like the
Yeah.
crying hands.
I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened.
Yeah. But you are not saying that people should be changing their logo on a.
I'm not saying they should be changing their logo. I'm saying that they like because your brand goes beyond the logo, right? It's
Yes.
what are the YouTube like if you're doing for us we do YouTube thumbnails,
Mhm.
right? Or if you're doing like social media graphics, or if you're doing printed materials, or even your website and
Mhm.
whatnot. Like we do, there's other parts of the brand that have that do have a very strong visual defined to it, and a
Mhm.
logo can, depending on what the logo is, right? It can usually outlive different changes to your branding. You can keep the same logo and iterate on your branding, and you need to look nowhere further than corporate America. Right? If you look at a company like Apple, they have changed their logo over time slightly, except for, I mean, the first one was completely different, but after that, it's the first one is like it's hand script. I think it's like the apple falling down from a tree on
Is
like
it
someone's head.
really
Yeah, it's like this hand scripted thing. It looks more like an illustration
interesting?
than what
Okay.
turned into like the symbol of the apple with the bite taken out of it, which has gone through some iterations. It has had it has had a rainbow in it.
Mhm.
It has had like the aqua 3D look to it. It has been completely flat. It has, so like that logo has almost been more, that symbol has almost been more of uh, almost like a frame for the times that has slightly changed and evolved,
Hmm.
which is not necessarily true for a lot of brands, but you can see how that logo has slightly evolved over time, but again, over decades, not yearly. Please do
Right.
not change your logo every year.
I just wanted to make sure we were very clear about that here.
Please do not change your logo every year. Yeah, unless your
uh,
logo's crap. Sorry.
all right. So, we're saying the logo shouldn't be changed yearly, but what should always be? I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull us back on track.
Bring us back, Liz.
What should be evaluated on a yearly basis?
All right, so messaging, right? We talk about visual trends. Also, look at your messaging. Make sure that you're still communicating in the same way that you would to your customers.
Mhm.
There, and then on an operation side of things, there's a surprising number of business owners that still have offerings on their websites that they, no longer have, or that have changed over time. So take a look at your service offerings or your product offerings. Make sure that your products is a little bit easier because people are usually good about taking products down. But like service offerings, we all kind of change a little bit, and I might be internally looking at myself here.
Oh, I
um,
definitely am because I've rewritten some stuff, but I haven't given it to you
yeah,
yet.
and likewise, I have some
Yeah.
changes I need to make on my site, right? So uh, and that's the case for so many of us in the service space, because we're constantly evolving based on feedback and based on things that we hear. But what we're putting out there should be an accurate representation of that. You don't want someone to reach out for you because they want you to help them with social media, and then you're saying, well, actually, it's been like 2 years since I did social media work, which is not true. She still does, but as an
Every day.
example, right? So yeah, just even details about those deliverables or how they change over time should be updated.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And then like from a content marketing lens, like honestly, content marketing needs to be evaluated more than annually, regardless of how small your business is, because the nature of it is a ton of deliverables. Right?
Yeah.
Like your website, it should not be static. It is not a brochure.
Hmm.
It should live, breathe, and change, but it is a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas social media and email and that sort of thing, it's a lot of things
Hmm.
that turn into a thing
Yeah.
more. And so I think that the pulse needs to be kept more frequently on that. I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm just biased because it's what I do. I don't know. But that's a really, really big thing, is thinking about like why you're doing what you're doing in your content marketing,
Yeah.
at least on an annual basis, of why are you
Hmm.
making this decision?
Yeah. Okay, so obviously we've made it through here, so our audience that's still been listening is interested in finding out all about like audits and considering what to do when it comes to auditing their business. So, is there a simple framework or a checklist that business owners can use to do an audit on their marketing at the end of the year?
Yeah, so we have decided to create a resource for you, where you can have it's a checklist that you can walk through to do an audit of your marketing. So it's going to be in the show notes, it's going to be in the YouTube description, and then we're also going to have a resources page on ecstasypod.com, so that you can go through and do this, because just us trying to rattle off a checklist to you, that ain't going to work for anybody. So but please go and take a look at that.
You mean you're not usually taking notes when you listen to a podcast?
I mean, I sometimes do take notes when I'm listening to a podcast, but I'm not going to take notes of an entire checklist. That's like
Yeah,
a lot.
I'm usually driving.
Yeah, I do audiobooks when I drive more than podcasts.
Don't say that. She does podcasts. You should do podcasts too, specifically ours. All right, Liz, let's wrap this thing up. Let's
Hmm.
wrap it up. So, what is one area of marketing you think every small business should pay attention to in their end of year audit?
Are you still saying what you meant to say?
Hmm.
We get a little lost in the creation of stuff, especially this goes back to what I was just saying about content marketing. We get a little lost in the iteration of stuff, and sometimes we'll take ourselves on little adventures.
Hmm.
Are we still on the yellow brick road? Like,
Yeah.
are we still actually plotting the course that we laid out in our strategy, that we created in our messaging originally? Like, are we doing what we said we were going to do, or did we kind of like
Hmm.
go frolicking?
Yeah. Absolutely, and I'll double down on that, and I'll say that specifically when it comes to like what you stand for, what your core values, vision, and mission are, those should be things that you know off the top of your head. And I know that's not necessarily true for every small business owner, but if you know those, you will stay on top of it. And the example I can give is like on the corporate world. When I worked in corporate America, you know what got printed and handed out as magnets to every single employee? Our core values so that we could all put it on our cubicles. Yeah, corporate America is great. There, you can walk into offices and see, the mission of the business printed up as wall art or put up there. So, not saying that you need to do this, but maybe having a tactile version of that, like printed out or somewhere in your office, would be a helpful reminder to
Yeah,
stay true to that.
I love that. Not the cubicles. I love the idea, not the cubicles.
I have cubicles over here. No, I don't. I'm in a corner. Okay.
Ah,
All right, last question, Liz. We're almost out of here. So, if there is one question that people should, or one action that people should take after this episode, what should it be?
you should download the audit checklist we're giving you and do the audit on your accounts, on your marketing.
Yes, please go to x to z pod.com and download from our resources tab.
Absolutely, yeah.
And with that, we're done. Hope you all have a great end of your year, and we'll be right back here in January.